Thank you for joining us today at Homestead for Life. Today we are making mulberry jelly. So we've got all of our stuff here ready. We have our half-pint jars and our water bath canner, plenty of water in it. So we're going to get this heating up. We're going to put it on, oh my goodness, slow cook, sorry, and hit start. We're going to get all that heated up for us. We've got roughly 8 cups of mulberries. Now, if you look up any of the instructions, it's going to tell you to destem them, which is kind of ridiculous because the stem runs all the way down like to here. So I'm not quite sure how to completely get the stem out of those. I know obviously we can cut off the ends, but we're going to try it without destemming our mulberries because we are going to be filtering that out later anyway. So what I have here is a flour sack towel that's been kind of sewed into a bag. And I'm just going to kind of drape this around my skimmer here, my screen strainer. And when we get to that stage, we'll use this to filter out all of the stems and everything else. So we just have our mulberry juice to make our mulberry jelly. Okay, so we've got that. We've got our normal canning tools. We've got our funnel, our spatula, our little magnet stick thing for the lids. We've got our lids in a pot going. We've got our pots and pans to make, to cook everything down. We have our pectin, and we have our vinegar, our white vinegar. So we've got all the stuff. Let's get started. What we're gonna do next, or first, I guess, really. So we've got our jars in the canner. The water's getting warm in there. The jars are getting warm. Warm food going into warm jars, always, right? So we are going to slowly heat our berries up to a simmer until they start juicing, really. And as you can see, part of this is a big block of ice. So mulberries are one of the most amazing, tastiest fruits ever. However, they only stay good for a few days, which is why you don't typically see them. I've never seen them in a grocery store for sale anywhere. And that's probably because from the time they're fully ripe to the time they are moldy is like 4 days. You've got about 3 good days to eat them. So I had to put them in the fridge while we were able to pick enough. It took about 2 or 3 days until we were able to pick enough off of our trees to have 2 quarts, 8 cups, 2 quarts, 8 cups-ish to be able to process. So here we are. We've got our mulberry block here. And if you have never picked mulberries, you would not know that everything a mulberry touches is going to be stained purple. So be prepared for that. Usually it washes off, but like I would not use a wooden spoon for this step because it will probably never look the same again. So just something to kind of keep in mind. So what we are going to do is get these all heated up and crush them. We are trying to juice them here. So we are going to crush them in this pot and then heat them up to a simmer and let them simmer covered for 10 minutes. It's going to take a couple minutes to get to that point because, you know, it's still frozen on the bottom of this block. They didn't have quite enough time to thaw out today. It's thawed most of our ice brick out. I turned the heat up a little bit, so it's at like a 5 medium temperature. And my spoon wasn't smashing well enough. The silicone is just a little too flexible. So we're taking a potato masher and we are going to squish all the juice that we can out of these berries. And we're going to keep stirring it until it's up to a good simmer and smashing and stirring and getting just as much juice out of here as we can. So hasn't been very long. We've just got them all thawed out and already you can see all the juice in the pan. So hopefully we can get as much juice as we need for our jelly. We've been smashing and smashing, and it's just starting to simmer, so we're going to give it one last stir. Turn it down a little bit. It had gotten up to, I'd put it up to a 6. So I'm going to kind of smooth it out after our last stir, put it back down to 4 to 5, and cover it and set a timer for 10 minutes. Okay, so it has simmered for 10 minutes. We smushed it up a couple more times in that 10 minutes. So now we are going to strain out our juice. See how many cups we get so we can determine how much sugar to mix in here. Ooh, big plop. And then, so we're going to put this back on the stove in a saucepan. Heat it up to a hard boil. And then we're going to add in all the sugar at once and the pectin. And let it all boil together. And then into our canning jars and into our canner. So we are water bath canning this today. I don't know if I mentioned that. Water bath canning this today. This flour sack towel will probably never be the same again. Quite a beautiful shade of purple. But that is okay. I am not worried about that. We'll wash it and use it for something else, purple or not. All right, so we've got almost 2 cups of juice, which is almost half of what we're hoping for, but we'll see what we can squeeze out once we start squeezing the bag here, which is going to be hot, so tongs. I'll get us started there. All right, so we are going to squeeze just as much as we can out of this before we get it back onto the stove. Our next step is to pour all of that juice back into our pot. And we're going to bring this to a rapid boil, a hard boil. And then once it's boiling hard, we are going to add our sugar all at once and our pectin all at once. So for our 2 cups of juice, we are going to add about 3 cups of sugar and 1 pack of pectin. And then once that all is dissolved, we're going to give it like a minute to all boil together. And then into the jars we go. All right, so we're going to add our pectin. We could have done the pectin when we first added this to the jar. It's the sugar we got to wait till it comes to a boil for. So we're going to add our pectin, make sure it's all mixed in well. It had just started boiling, so we just got to get it back up there, make sure it's at that good, hard, solid boil. Okay, so our boil is going, so we are going to add our 3 cups of sugar all at one time. Mix it in and let them all boil. Let it all boil together for a minute. And then into our jars it goes. So once we get it all mixed up, so much sugar. Jelly has so much sugar. So much sugar in it. So once this is all mixed up, we're going to give it a minute to boil all up together. And while we're giving it that minute, we're going to start getting our jars out of the canner. All right, so after your jelly has boiled, if there's any white foam at the top, you'll use a spoon to scrape it off. You don't have to, but it's really just for aesthetics. It'll look better if you do. And then you're going to fill your jars, your clean jars, out of your hot canner. So hot jars, hot water in your canner. And you're going to fill your jars to 1/4 inch. And somehow 2 cups of liquid and 3 cups of sugar does not equate to 5 cups, 5 jars. So we are going to have, looks like about 2.5 half pints here. But that's okay because we are very early in the mulberry season. So we are surely going to have more to make. You are going to wipe the rims of your jars with your vinegar. And then we're going to get our clean rings out of our heated water on the stove. It's just set to a low heat so it can kind of soften the glue. I'm actually going to watch, to pour the vinegar back in the pot, in the canner. I never remember to do that. Oh, 2-for-1 lids on that one, on that grab. And then our rings. And we're just going to finger tighten these carefully because everything's hot. Whew. All right, and then we're going to put these in our canner. So we are going to water bath can them for 10 minutes. To do that in our electric Carey Canner, oh, don't tip over. You can put a towel in there to keep them spaced out or keep them from knocking against each other if you want. So we are going to hit our water bath. We're going to set our timer for 10 minutes, leave it on exhaust, and hit start. But that's not it. Okay, so once you see a steady stream of steam coming out of the canner, we're going to hit start again, and that's our sign that it's, well, that's the canner sign that the timer is going to start. And then the 10-minute countdown is on, and that's it. Then you've got jelly. Okay, we have our steady stream of steam. We've got a low whistle, so we are going to hit start, and it's going to start our countdown timer. Our timer is done, so we are going to unplug it. It's already on exhaust, so we've got to let the steam die down a little bit. It is not going to let us open it. Pressure canner or not, it's still building up some pressure with all that steam. So while it's cooling down, I want to tell you about the different mulberry trees these came off of. We have 3 mulberry trees. One is an ever-bearing mulberry that fruits several times a year. It's grown huge. It started producing in year 2, early in year 2. That one's been kind of our powerhouse mulberry tree. We also have a black mulberry tree that has the smallest mulberries on it and probably our least favorite. And then our Pakistani mulberry tree, which has the fewest amount. It is the least bushy tree. It's got very few long branches versus being more full and bushy. It's kind of straggly, I guess. But the berries on it are bigger and juicier and tastier and just wonderful. They are the favorite. So mulberry trees grow very easily from cuttings. What you want is a branch that's about pencil thick and probably about pencil length, if not maybe a little bit longer, 10 to 12 inches maybe. But pencil thick is the optimum size of your mulberry tree cuttings that you're going to want. And you can just plop them suckers in water and they will start rooting. They are pretty wonderful that way, which you will probably see us do here shortly as soon as they stop fruiting for the season, because I do want 10 more mulberry trees, especially the Pakistani one. They are so good. All right, so it's getting there. The lid's got a little bit more wiggle to it. Stand back here. So, and then because we always have to, oh, I forgot to tell you, you have to make sure the water comes over the top of the lids of your jars when you're water bath canning, not when you're pressure canning, but when you're water bath canning, the water has to come over the top. And so these have not popped yet. That is okay. And we are going to sample the little bit of leftover from the pot. I put it in the fridge because I like jelly better cold. So we are going to sample what this tastes like. This one is going to get eaten probably tomorrow. There's not much there. So this one did not need to be pressure canned. One already popped for us. This did not need to be pressure canned because it doesn't need to be saved for any amount of time. This will literally not last through the week. So, mulberry jelly. And that is probably my new favorite jelly. That is fantastic. So we did not follow the instructions properly. We did not remove the stems. That was freaking good. And other than that, we followed the directions on the National Home for Food Preservation website, and mulberry jelly. Cheers. Thanks for joining us today.